Okay, so I'm here to try to share my knowledge with you about digital marketing and about the importance of building a proper digital marketing strategy in order to... What happened?
Oh no, are you out of power? The computer shut down.
Oh, the... Wait,
Green
I
power?
have here the power. Sorry. So, depending, it doesn't really matter what kind of product you have, either if it's a co-working space, a product or a service that you sell. For any kind of these things, you would need something strong and reliable in order to make a promotion. So, I have here a few things to cover. I would like first to speak about setting up objectives or goals. I can tell you a few things about how to build a persona and what is that. How to choose the right tone and voice to talk to your target audience, and which are the right channels to use. I can go through the set of instruments that I generally use for implementing the marketing strategy. And of course, I want to focus also on drawing a realistic timeline, which is in concordance with your objectives, and it is something very important for me. And I would also like to point out the power of the storytelling, because content marketing is something very, I don't know, it is a market that grows, but it is also something that can help you very much with keeping your community engaged. A few things about myself. So I am the PR and the communication strategist for Rubik Hub, which is the co-working space in Piatra Neamț, Northeast Romania. And we are focused on building a strong startup community, meaning that we build and we develop educational programs for startups. That means I have a lot of work and a lot of diverse work, because we have several targeted audiences, and we have to use various channels and various ways of communicating with each segment. And I also wanted to share you my work experience in order to make you understand that marketing is not necessarily my thing. I mean, I haven't studied marketing during university or anything. I've been a tour guide for 10 years, but I had to switch roles when I became a mother, and I started to discover this domain step by step as I joined Rubik Hub, and I can say in 1 year's time I feel confident about my work, and I'm sharing this with you because you need to understand that marketing, yes, it is a huge domain, but everyone can do it if you designate a particular time per day or per month, or I don't know, per week. Depends on how it is.
Did you do courses or studies? Or?
Not necessarily courses, but I attend as many marketing or brand related events as possible, and I read a lot.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to tell you is that is going to be a presentation, but at each slide we can stop and talk, because I want it to have to be interactive. So, yeah. Let's start with this. What do you think is a digital marketing strategy? Would any of you like to answer? Do you have any I don't know, definition in your mind? Yes, please.
For example, be able to reply to the 5 WH question about your product, what you are going to putting on the market. You need to find a way to find the answer of the WH question and be able to transmit the answer to your audience.
What is WH?
Who, when, what, where.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. They are
Why?
called like this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. a good answer. When I set up the first digital marketing strategy for Ruby CUBB, I built it taking into consideration the brand and taking into consideration the fact that I want to empower the brand and to promote it properly. Ruby CUBB, well, we had a brand book at that time. We had a small community, but we needed to transform it into a real brand. That means that now in Romania, if you ask any startup related person, be it a founder, investor, or mentor, I hope they should know at least some things, or they should at least heard about Ruby CUBB.
I confirm. Sorry if I didn't say
Thank you
before, I am part of my startup is part of the startup community that she mentioned before, and let's say that at least the name is on the ears, on the mind of those people. I confirm.
And when, if you are to ask yourselves when you should start a digital marketing strategy, I would say right at the beginning, actually before launching your product or service or space or anything else, because it helps you create for yourself a broader image and a general vision, and set yourselves objectives. So, talking about objectives, I know this is the SMART chart. It's something very clicheistic, if you want. Everybody talks about SMART charts, but for me it's something important to focus on, because every objective that you set, be it a long-term or a short-term objective, has to be SMART. That means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Would you have any questions regarding this? Can anyone tell me, I don't know, give me examples from your side of setting up a very short-term objective in comparison with a long-term objective? Like for you, Anna, how would you set up? What would be your first objective for a short term?
Normally I work with objects for 5 years.
Yes.
And then I put for me an important step after 3 years. And then I divided my objectives in smaller one until to come to a weekly object.
Of course. In our case, for example, at Ruby CUBB, we decided that we have to start helping the entrepreneurial ecosystem grow through the power of our educational programs for startups. But it is not something that you clap your hands and happens. It is something that has to create a positive impact and a powerful impact, but on a very long term. So actually our goal and our timeline is very broad. It is aligned in 20 years. Starting with 2017, we decided that in 20 years' time, we want to be, a very important pillar in the ecosystem, in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And from 20 years, if we think backwards, of course, we have lots of smaller objectives divided on very short and longer period of time. Any questions so far? Please feel free to interrupt me anytime. Okay. Who has heard about building a persona or a persona thing? Who would like to explain what that is? Please, Linda.
So basically you have to think about the people you want to attract, and you can make up a person that basically represents the person you want to attract. So you give it a name, you give it an age, you give it the geography. Yeah. Yes.
And so basically it's a very simple exercise. When describing a persona, you imagine a person in face of you, and you start with the very, very basic things like name, age, sex, style of clothing, habits, hobbies, the type of, I don't know, apartment he or she has. And by dividing and by putting all these characteristics and preferences, you understand better, you can get to know her better or him better, and in this way you can create your product considering these details. And of course, once you build a persona, you start focusing on creating a community, because the community is not built out of a persona, but it is built out of several types of people. Okay, the community word for us is also very important, and I'm sure for each person in this room, because the community is always aligned to the same set of values, and somehow we work for the same goals, or we achieve the same expectations in order to set goals. And the community, what is for you a community? Can you give me an answer for this? How would you define your communities, the communities that you are part of?
You have a shared mindset or goal,
Yes.
or shared interest.
Great.
Common values.
Common values, good.
Oh yes, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
How many values would you think of in the description of your community?
How many? Or
Values,
how many values?
yes.
Collaborative,
or can you
open
give me-
mind,
yes.
friendly.
How many are in Sydney? It doesn't matter how many.
The idea is like this, or this is actually my personal opinion. The more values you have, the more complex is your community.
Mhm.
But actually, each of you are trying to set up a specific community with a lot of people to join in, but these people have to be aligned to a smaller set of values. Because if you put as a value the friendship, okay, friendliness, all the digital nomads are friendly, okay, generally speaking. But I don't know, if you put something like creative, friendly, and overachiever, you narrow down your niche, and it's simpler to work with and to know their habits or their expectations or their needs. So this is why we go back to building your persona exercise. That is something that you have to do right for the beginning. The tone and voice. The tone and voice of your communication. This actually describes how your brand, how you communicate with your audience, and how you can actually influence your audience to perceive your message. So yes, your company's tone and voice represents your brand, personality, and values. In our case, in Rubik Hub's case, we have, as I told you, different targeted groups. We have the high school students and the private investors, for example. It is actually impossible to use the same type of tone and voice for both of these groups. So I choose a proper one for students and another one for the investors. But with the tone and voice comes also the channels, because I cannot attract private investors using Twitter posts, but I can do it by using, I don't know, direct email marketing or newsletters. So, let's speak a little bit about the channels. Who can give me an example of social media channels that you currently use, or you are currently using?
Facebook.
LinkedIn, Telegram.
Okay, can you differentiate the two, for example, LinkedIn with Facebook?
LinkedIn is more professional
Yes.
to communicate your activity as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
and Facebook is more for the user to get maybe user.
Mhm.
And inside Facebook, we have different groups.
Of course. Facebook is a very useful tool, and in Europe one of the most common tools to use. But of course there are so many others. And again, back to the community, the broader and more complex the community is, the more channels you get to use. Because if you speak now about digital nomads, of course you have people from all over the world. And in Basco, you might use more Twitter if you have a digital nomad camp with Americans, or you can use Facebook groups as for this event. In general, it is recommended to use no more than 3 channels, social media channels. So, for example, we most often used Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And you need to be constant in posting on these channels. I mean, once you have a community, you have to keep them engaged. And the easiest way to do this is by putting posts on these social media channels.
How
But
many,
of course, yes,
how many
please.
times per day or week would you
It
post?
depends a lot on your activity. But in the case of a co-working space, as we are all here, I would say at least twice a week, because they need to know about you. And if you have more information to share towards your co-workers, of course you can do this by using the groups, not overwhelming the page itself, you know.
So on Instagram twice per week.
Or Instagram twice per week, depends on how picturesque you are, because Instagram is more for that. In Nepal, yes, of course, I
Or
would
Facebook
use Instagram on a daily basis for my co-working space. But in my case, I would better use Facebook because I can add a lot of text and hashtags and links and so on. Yes, sorry, Philip.
No, it's okay. I would say post as often as you can. And
Yeah.
if you have the whole week and you have nothing else to do, you can post like 10 postings on Instagram, 20 stories on Instagram per day, and even more on all social media channels. Just think about like that if you have one content, for example, co-working Bansko unconference, that on Instagram there is a little bit slightly different storytelling about the conference than on Facebook, for example.
Or Twitter, yeah.
But I think if you do like 1 week 20 posts and another week 2 posts, I think that's not very consistent, right?
No, yeah, it
So
would be
will
great if you couldn't do it every day, 20 posts, I would say, something like this, but you can't. But don't judge yourself. If there's a time where you have no time to post, let it be, but try to get on the game again as soon as possible.
But it also has to do with the algorithms of Facebook or Instagram. If you post 20 times, then it can be seen as spam or...
No, it's not. It's like just as more as you post, the possibility that you be shown is much higher.
Yes, please.
That's a discussion for our co-working, because I think I'm maybe a little bit old for that. But
There is
I
no
think
hope for that.
Yeah.
I learned all these things in a year, so everything is possible, trust me.
in my mind, as an entrepreneur, I think that it's not a value to post at all everything. You also have a strategy for the content of the post.
Of course, of course.
So you can also have posts about your life, storytelling about your life in the co-working, but the content of the post has to come together with your tasks as an entrepreneur to help them. So you have to be in your mind very clear before how many posts, or which content, and
Yes.
and what you want to tell about.
There are also instruments for this that might combine the two challenges. I mean, you can post 20 posts a week, and then you are away, let's say, and you still want to post or to be present in the social media, and maybe you're not sure what. You can pick one of the instruments. The instruments that would help you schedule your
Yes.
posts and do them there in the free week, and then post them online and think strategically. I mean, if I am to show you, I think I can find somewhere in my computer the digital strategy for this year. Only for social media, it is quite complex, and it involves all the channels with the newsletters that we use. We send periodically, with the email marketing, with the after movies of the event. So, but everything goes also in the social media, because if we write something on our blog, we also share on social media. So yeah, it's a complex, but it is something more or less simple to build if you dedicate your time to it. So I assume everybody knows about the importance of a website. Each company or startup has to have such a thing. But it is quite a talk regarding this subject, because there are a lot of websites where you enter and you totally get lost. I do prefer the websites that are simple, that offer the information very clear and very well organized, in order to find it anywhere you want, anywhere you go through the website. And maybe something that I would suggest you to put in your website is to do the links, the backlinks, because it also helps you spare some space on your website, and it doesn't really bother the reader. So make connections through, I don't know, if you write something in your blog, which is on your website obviously, and you want to say something about an event you've been to, put the backlink of the event, and your reader will go directly there to find more information. You don't want to bother him with all that content on your blog. Who uses newsletters? Okay, and what do you put in your newsletter?
What happened in the week, next things, and present thinking happened in the past. Yes.
And how do you build your audience for the newsletter?
How, in the contest, in general contest, we take a lot of emails of the people in the presentation, in the events, or just the people coming inside, even the community.
Okay, and yes, please.
I don't use newsletters as often as I should do, but I need to restart using the newsletter, because I figured out in my rural areas, a lot of people don't join social media.
And they prefer newslettering.
And they prefer the email thing, and how I get contact or all the email addresses. While I'm running events, I'm collecting all the data, so they have to fill out their name and everything on a list, and they can make a cross for going for the newsletter. And it's working.
The problem with newsletters these days is that when you collect a new email address, is you can send it directly, your newsletter, but actually you have also to integrate the GDPR regulations. And for example, in our case, we use the MailChimp system. It's a platform that also has this integrated, and it is very helpful. And for example, if you go to an event, or you create an event where you have new people, newcomers, you can ask them directly for their address, and after the event you would send them a nice email: "Hi, we met here, and would you like to subscribe or to follow us via our newsletter?" And this way you invite them to be part of your platform, but they can go out whenever they want. Any other questions here?
Matthias, are you using newsletter?
We have a newsletter. We send about like once every quarter or so. We send a newsletter out.
And what is inside the newsletter?
It's always like what's happening next. So, for example, the last one was like the ski season is coming. Also next year, Bounce Nomad Fest, and then kind of a summary of the content that we had in the last quarter, like links to articles or videos or whatever happened.
Okay.
What I learned in so far. Actually, I was trying to do an experiment with our newsletter because I wanted to figure out when is the best time to send it, which day of the month, of the week, what hour do they open it, what are the most read articles and so on. But yeah, you know, this in order to build a proper statistic, you need to allocate a lot of time for it. The idea is that they say that the best time frame for one to read your posts or mails or